What's up, crypto gang? Welcome back to another episode. If you guys are new here, we do a giveaway at the beginning of every single episode, and today's winner is Ricky Simon. Thanks so much for commenting and liking on the previous videos, Ricky. I just sent you some crypto. If you guys want to win on the next video, don't forget to like, comment with your wallet address, and subscribe. Today's interview is with Tron Black, the lead developer of Ravencoin. Well, I've done a lot of content around Ravencoin. I'm a big fan of what they're doing. I got to sit down with Tron and talk about what is coming in 2019. There's some really exciting features, so let's dive right into the interview. I am here with Tron Black, the lead developer at Ravencoin. How you doing, Tron?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. So Tron and I got a chance to meet in person in Vegas at World CryptoCon. It was a lot of fun. We got a chance to talk about what's coming with Raven, but I guess for viewers, a lot of people already know about you, Tron, and you've become quite the celebrity. So just as a quick background, how did you get into crypto and how did you get into Raven?
Sure. So for crypto, I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I'd sold some companies to public companies and stuff. And then in 2013, I think it was actually the Cyprus thing where they closed the banks and said they were going to give everybody a haircut, and people were rattling the gates and saying, hey, you can't take our money. And so they said, all right, well, we'll take the money a little bit higher level, from only the richer people. Still people rattling gates. So they kept moving it up until it was just the really rich people and not enough people were rattling the gates. And then they basically did take their money. They just took a big percentage of the kind of the people had a lot of money, Russian oligarchs and whatnot that had money in Cyprus. And it kind of just made me think about money a lot more. But at the same time, that was when people were talking, what is the solution? How can we fix this? Or, money's not really yours. They can shut the doors and take your money and then open the doors again. And so that's kind of the time frame. So it was kind of early-ish 2013 is kind of when I found it. Really exciting times. I just thought this is really cool. I have a computer science degree. I had an MBA. Kind of interested in markets and stocks and things like that. So it kind of resonated kind of through all those different parts of me, I guess. And so I went to one of the early Bitcoin conference, one of the ones that I guess they invited or they expected this many and they got this many. It was one of the early San Jose ones. And so a friend and I drove out there and I think Bruce Fenton, who was the executive director of the Bitcoin Foundation, and Charlie Shrem and Gavin Andreessen, all those guys were there. And so that was kind of my first introduction to that, and kind of learned that kind of self-selected, kind of libertarian-leaning folk, kind of self-selected to that, this type of money. And I just wanted to do stuff in that. So then I started a company related to that and ended up selling it. Went to work I saw Patrick in, I think it was 2014. I was working for a company, contracting for a company in Amsterdam, and went there. They were to a conference in Amsterdam. I went there and I saw Patrick speak, and he was talking about doing a parallel crypto equity. Kind of during the Q&A, he was talking about this, and I said, boy, that's down the street for me. I mean, quite literally like 10 minutes away from my house. And so I tried to get on it at, kind of what was Overstock at the time, and then Medici later. And so eventually that happened. And so that's how I ended up here. So by here, I mean, it's in Overstock. It's Medici Ventures, which is wholly owned by Overstock.com. And then we own a series of meaning Medici owns a series of portfolio companies. And so I'm technically a kind of a developer, a principal developer for Medici Ventures. I get to work with our portfolio companies and help them in the kind of the crypto stuff. And then for Ravencoin, that was kind of Bruce Fenton's kind of idea. And then he talked to Patrick, and Patrick said, hey, we have people over at Medici that could kind of help you. And Bruce had talked to some other people that were kind of had started working on it, didn't quite get it done, and so they talked to me and said, yeah, that's what I want to do. So that's kind of how it all started. I mean, it's a kind of shortened version, but yeah.
Nice. And for everybody new that's going to come in and see this, that's interested, what is Ravencoin from a high level?
Yeah, so Ravencoin is a code fork of Bitcoin. So not a chain fork, meaning it's not like people got coins from Bitcoin, like you have a Bitcoin Cash and some of that stuff's actually going on. It wasn't that type of split where people get they double their money kind of thing. Although it's kind of interesting trying to explain that to an accountant here, right? Oh, by the way, your money just had babies and now you've got more money. Trying to explain that is odd, but. So it's a code fork. Ravencoin is a code fork of Bitcoin, intentionally for the purpose of then adding these additional features to it, which is the ability to do assets on top of it. And the easiest way to explain it, if you're already a crypto person, is look at ERC20, look at Counterparty, look at Mastercoin, which I think is now Omni, where Tether runs on, or Colored Coins, Open Assets. These are all kind of the same idea, which is to take the technology behind Bitcoin and then use that same blockchain to issue a new token, and then use that same technology to transfer using kind of the same method that Bitcoin uses to transfer that token. Now, these tokens that are created, they're just kind of created, boom, whole cloth, you just get a new token. And like the early Bitcoin, very, very early Bitcoin, they have no value to start with. And so how people give them value is, they can say, hey, this is a gift card for a cup of lemonade. They can say this is a share of a company, as long as they're, kind of following, there's a bunch of rules and stuff, so be careful with that. But mostly in the US, but in other countries, it's still, kind of free, and they can do kind of things like that, as long as they don't sell to people in the US. But it's basically that, creating a token, creating in our platform, at least 1 to 21 billion tokens, and saying they're divisible or indivisible, and then they're reissuable, meaning you as the owner of the token can issue more or not, right? It's not reissuable, meaning it's locked, right? So what you see now and can see on chain is like, this is how many, there will only ever be this many, and you can set that, it's just a flag. And then also something that's somewhat unique to us is metadata that goes in the interplanetary file systems, kind of a global file system where you kind of throw a file out there. You have to keep a copy in case kind of everybody drops theirs. You can kind of replicate it, but everybody can access this file by its hash. And the cool part about that is when you throw this data and you anchor it or put this hash in the Ravencoin blockchain, is you're linking to this file that can't change. So I don't want to get too far into the details, but kind of cool feature of this is you create an asset, you link it to a file that is what this asset means, meaning it can be a PDF, it can be a promise, it can be just a description of the size of a lemonade cup that they're going to get when they redeem this token. There's lots of different things you can use it for. Sort of you can think of it like Sky Miles, gift cards, actually representing a share of chunk of gold or an individual coin of gold that's in a safe, all kinds of different things, right? We don't decide what it's going to be. We just provide kind of this generic platform of the ability to transfer and keep counterfeit-proof these ability to move these tokens. So that feature set actually activated very, very close or near the time that we were in World CryptoCon. I got home from World CryptoCon on a Sunday night late, driving home, and woke up the next morning to basically have this feature set activate and people creating assets. And we had a little struggles. There's actually a paper out there that I've written kind of about the challenges and stuff that we happened to experience on that day. But by that day, the time that day was over, everything was flowing and functioning properly, and still is. People have created over 11,000 tokens. They have to be uniquely named. There's one company that created 700 of them, and they're actually kind of a cool company. Assure.co, you can look them up. They do kind of investment type stuff. They're big Ravencoin fans. We've got some other companies that I can't talk about that are using Ravencoin, and I can't talk about them just because they're part of this portfolio company kind of thing that we have, and we're a public company, so I have to kind of stay quiet on some of the stuff until it comes out. But
yeah. Cool.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely answers it. As far as when we talked one of the times at World CryptoCon, after you gave your awesome talk where you came in on a hoverboard or one wheel and wearing the mask, that was fantastic. That's actually on the channel also. But we spoke about there was like an attack that was going on.
There was.
What we believed or what you believed to be delaying till the holiday.
Yeah. I don't know why that happened. I was surprised that it was happening. So one of the things that we do here is we're writing code. So we just write the code. We can't tell people to run it. We can hope they run it. We can suggest that they run it. We can hope that there's lots of people running it. But we're just writing the code. And we really want it to be that way, where it's really the community that's adopting it or not adopting it, choosing whether to run it or not. We'll tell you what's in the code. We'll make it. We make everything open source. The GitHub, even our mistakes in development are all kind of public, because we're checking in our stuff as we go. You can see kind of our progress and everything. And that's one of our goals, is just like this full transparency thing. So one of the things we did, instead of saying, hey, here's the code that has assets, you got to run it, we said, all right, we're going to activate this the same way that Bitcoin activates some of their things, which is this BIP9 process, which is a voting process. And the voting is not that somebody says, yeah, I want it or don't want it. It's they basically say, I'm going to run the new software. I'm not going to run the new software. If they're running the new software and it mines a block, which is kind of the kind of adding to the chain, then if they're running the new software, then it's kind of a check. It's a vote for yes, we're gonna go forward with this. So we thought, well, let's set it at 90% activation, because the other 10%, whoever that is, they get actually forked off, meaning they can always come back and recover, but basically whatever they're running kind of like leaves the chain and they're off on their own. If they send coins, they're not interacting with the rest of the network. So we said, 10%. We don't want to make it 100%, because then one guy could kind of stop us. We said 90%. We expect, especially since the real value we think of Ravencoin, just our opinion, is that we will that this asset creation is a valuable proposition. Otherwise, it's really just kind of a copy of Bitcoin. And so we said, all right, well, let's set it at 90%. So we set it at 90%. We also activated on what we consider kind of this birthday kind of date. So October 31st, we activate the thing, but it's not an activation of assets. It's an activation of the voting, or deciding to vote. And so when that activated, then it has to run to the next boundary. And this is because of kind of Bitcoin has these boundaries of 2016 blocks. So it runs to the next boundary, then it starts counting the votes. But we expected by the time we started counting the votes that at least the miners, if not everybody, because we have no way of communicating with all the people that are running the software, we expected that this vote was going to be near 100%. And so I wake up and come downstairs and somebody said, hey, you heard what's happening? And I'm like, no, not really. And was it you that told me? Was it you?
I was at the table or around.
Okay, it might have been you. Anyway, we were just right that morning. I'm drinking my coffee and finding out that, hey, it looks like somebody is mining and they've downgraded their software and they're mining with like 20%. Well, 20% is like a lot. It's like the equivalent for our network, which is pretty strong, the equivalent of like 30,000 GPUs, and like state of the art ones or near state of the art, like $500, $600, $800 GPUs, like 30,000 of them are mining and voting with the old software. And since we're at 90%, 20% is voting for the old software. We're like, this isn't going to activate. This seems like a malicious attack. And I asked around, we tried to figure out, I'm on the Discord, I'm trying to figure out, why is this happening? Why is somebody doing this? Motivations were never clear. Don't know why anyone would want to do that. Don't know why anyone would slow it down. But sure enough, as it's voting, it becomes clear that we're not going to make it to this 90%. So now people are getting upset. Why is one group, although it was a large amount of mining, so it seemed fair, right? They had a large amount of votes, preventing us from activating assets. I'm like, I can't tell you why, but that's kind of how it's set up, right? We need almost everybody on board, or 90% of people on board. So this happens. So we get to the next boundary, and looks like it's still going. So we're still below this. They're mining above 10%. And as this is happening, communities rallying, meaning the mining community's rallying. Well, I'm at this World CryptoCon, and the person that I'm hanging out with is the has helped set up the mining section of this World CryptoCon. So there's people mining, cooling equipment, all that kind of stuff, has all this connections with the mining. So she starts calling the people that have mining hardware and things like that. It's like, hey, we need help. And they're like, we're on it. Look at our Discord. And I look at their Discord and it's like, hey, we're already doing this. Raven needs our help. And so there's all these people rallying to basically boost the mining horsepower. So we nearly doubled. We went from like 6 terahashes to like 10 terahashes, pretty much bringing their ratio down, kind of near or below 10%. And it just kind of, the spike just kind of continued, and we're watching it. People wrote, one of the miners wrote a website that said, here's how many blocks they need. It's 1,814 blocks to pass, and we need of 2016 blocks, and here's how many they need left. And oh no, they just got one. And you'd see the Discord, oh crap, somebody got another block. And so then they named them because they didn't know anything about them, because they're like hiding behind the Tor network. They're mining to we knew what address they were doing, which started with RSA5 something something something. So they named this group or person or whatever, RSA5, and so then all of a sudden there's memes of Darth Vader's RSA5 and all these kind of things happening, and it was just this like battle royale that was going on during this time. Anyway, we squeaked by. Long story short, squeaked by with like 90.1% or something, like just barely made it past the line. Got to the end, and one of the fun side effects was it activated on November 5th. Which is kind of has its own historical kind of thing with Guy Fawkes and stuff like that. So yeah. I don't think that was the reason that they were doing it, or it would have been a clean stop right for that second voting. They would have just said, oh, it's gonna. I don't know the motivations. It ended up working out. We got a lot of people rallying behind it, which was really, really fun. I activated on a fun day, and so it was fun.
Yeah. Because when I first heard that. I went and talked to a few different people about like what their thoughts were on it, and one of the most predominant ones was from a friend of mine, Seth Estrada, who's a miner, and we talked about it for a few minutes, and we brainstormed up that, do you think that it was a potential ASIC or a group of ASICs that had developed one and we're sending a signal by any means, or because that's only a few ASICs relative to that many GPUs, right?
Possible. I don't think so. I think one of the things, at least on the channels I was watching, and I may have a totally wrong view. I don't know. I'm watching a Discord channel or whatever. One of the things that seemed to be happening is they seemed to think they were renting a lot of their hash power from NiceHash. And so there was somebody that said, all right, well, I got 5 BTC to just outrent them on NiceHash, and they just threw a bunch of value or money at NiceHash and just outrented them. And I think that was part of the solution to stop the attack. I don't know what to call it, right? I don't know if it was an attack. I don't know if it was. I mean, at one point somebody said, "Are you doing this just to slow it down for that day and a half?" It's like, no, I wasn't. But somebody thought that maybe I was behind it. So
yeah. So in your presentation, there was one thing that stuck out, which was messaging. Can you talk a little bit about that and that's coming?
Absolutely. So messaging is this idea. So actually, the genesis of that was actually, I was at Satoshi Roundtable. I was talking to some folk. One person from a crypto project that had issued on a token that was ERC20, and they were transitioning to another kind of, call it less expensive technology, because they were paying out for their doing their utility token thing, and they weren't able to communicate with the ERC token holders. I mean, they have all these holders, but they're not able to send a message to them and say, hey, we're moving over to this new platform. So there's a whole bunch of people that are holding this token, probably on paper or paper wallets or a hardware wallet, and they aren't thinking about it, and they don't know that the transition's happening. There's no way to communicate with them. And so some other guy, same thing, said, hey, well, we got the same problem in capital market, and now. He said, I own I have a NASDAQ listed company. And when I want to communicate with my shareholders, I have to make this request to this quasi-monopoly thing that basically goes and collects the data from all, it's held in street names, so they have to go to talk to Schwab and Fidelity and everything and get their names. So they collect all the names together in this one big list and send it to them. It costs them $20,000, $30,000, and they send them this list. And the list consists of a name and a mailing address. Just no email, no phone number, no text, just a mailing address. So now you have to kill a bunch of trees and, print paper out and send, fold the stuff, postage and everything, send it out, and, some prepaid thing to vote and send that back or whatever. And I said, this just seems like really inefficient. I mean, on both sides, both in the crypto side where you get the ERC20 token, and over here, which I've kind of known about, but hearing it firsthand that there was kind of a two-phase thing. It's not just mailing it out. It's first collecting all the names together, and that's a large cost. I said, yeah, there's got to be a better way than this. So when we were putting this together, this is in my head, and I said, we need to have the ability to do both messaging and voting. And so that just kind of adds another kind of capability. And so the way to do that for us, we don't want to know the people's names, right? This isn't like attach your name to a crypto address or whatever, or your email or anything like that. But one thing we do want to do is we're planning on spanning all 6 platforms. So Linux, Mac, Windows, iOS, Android, and web. And so these clients, at least the ones that we want to build, would have the ability to say, if the owner of the token, so this would be the original issuer, wants to put something in IPFS, so the hash would go in the chain, it would be signed by their owner token, so we know that it's only sent by the person that originally issued it, or at least the person who now is the owner, controller of this token. They put a message in there. The client can just say, oh, I see this message, and so this message will be, I'm not going to say, broadcast is too strong a word. The client will say, hey, you own this token, and the owner is trying to say something, so here's the message. We have to work on kind of an anti-spam thing, because you can also send tokens to people. If you find their address, you can send it to them, and we don't want to be like, oh, I found all the addresses, I'm sending tokens to all the addresses, and then I'm going to message all these people, right? We don't want that. So we do have a plan to kind of solve that. So that's actually almost the hardest part of this plan, is to kind of fix that, fix that problem first. But basically, it's just one transaction in the chain, on chain. It basically points to an IPFS message. And then clients that honor that message, and if it's the first token and an address, will display that message. And that way you can communicate to the token holders, whether they be members in something, or shareholders in something, or holders of Lemonade tokens, whatever they are. You'll be able to kind of just send a message to them. Along with the message will come the ability to say, hey, we want to vote on this thing, whatever the thing is, right? We decide we want to franchise this, or we want to make the Lemonade cups bigger. I just keep using that as an example because kind of used it historically. But the goal there is basically to combine the messaging with the voting, so that you can kind of like have it be a little bit, if again, and I'm really careful about the kind of the using it like shareholder thing. I always kind of, with that, I just have to say it's totally legal. It's just legal as long as you're kind of operating under one of the SEC exemptions, or you've registered the security in the US. Other places it may be legal if you don't interact with the US. I just kind of always say that because I just don't want anybody to get in trouble kind of using our platform. The platform is kind of agnostic. It doesn't really care where you are, but just be careful. But with that, you could issue a share, issue shares. You can pay dividends. You can send them a message. You can collect the vote information. So the platform, the technology platform, is being built for kind of that, at least those capabilities. So anyway, that's the messaging. So it's coming soon. Yeah. So we're going to use the same technology we used for, if you look at it now, when you issue a token, you can put in IPFS data, and people are putting on all kinds of things, different memes, pictures, information that their tokens for sale, all of that kind of stuff. Our clients will probably be somewhat selective on what they show, so they're not going to show photographs, for example. We just want to be careful with that kind of content. But if you kind of follow sort of we'll have a spec that says, hey, here's a subject, here's a message, and we'll probably have an expiration date so that people getting the message way later aren't in a day-to-day. You need to vote. By the way, you need to vote by next year, by last year, it doesn't make sense. So we'll probably have an expiration date, so we don't show those. But it'll use that same technology that already exists in the issuance platform already, right, where you're issuing the token. So, yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I really like that part of the presentation specifically, because that kind of goes with the name a little bit. I find passing messages. I just thought that was was clever. Cool. So messaging, is there anything coming in 2019? Is that coming in 2019, or are there additional things coming?
So messaging we expect to have on testnet probably by the end of the year, mainnet first quarter. We have people that are like really interested in using it. They have specific use cases. So that's kind of the first one. Voting, we may try to get in that same time frame. It kind of depends, but it's like if we get the messaging done quickly, then we can kind of work on the other ones. Dividends can be added at any time, so it doesn't require a hard fork or anything like that. It's essentially just taking all of the addresses for a token and sending them Raven or sending them another token, and kind of batching it so that it doesn't clog up the chain, not putting it all in one block and kind of doing it somewhat atomically. It's just basically constructing that transaction with the click of a button instead of having to hand construct it. So there's not too much magic behind that. It's just adding that capability in the UI to make it super easy. And we're not the first ones to think of that. Counterparty has actually had that in their incarnation, and so we kind of looked at that and said, oh, that's a great idea. So we're really building on the shoulders of giants. I mean, a lot of the stuff has existed, not all in one platform and not across multiple, not in one token issuance platform and not in multiple, like meaning Android, Windows, Linux, all of the different technology platforms. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. And we're also trying to make it really easy. So lots easier than ERC20, but doing the same kind of thing. Same. Yeah, so we hope to take some of that load off of Ethereum.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. And yeah, thanks so much for sitting down with me.
Absolutely.
That's it for my interview with Tron Black. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, slap a like. If you guys are new here, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode of Hack Crypto.